The conference room door swings open. My heels click against marble floors, expensive Italian leather, the kind that announces arrival before you speak a word. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city 43 stories below, and leather chairs circle a table that cost more than most people's cars. I walk in wearing a charcoal suit, tailored to fit like armor, my silver hair swept back, diamond studs catching the morning light. Desmond stands near the window. My son. His face carries that practiced confidence he's perfected over the years, the one he wears for important clients, for people who matter. Brittany stands beside him, her designer dress crisp, her smile ready. They've rehearsed this moment. I watched them on the security monitor 20 minutes ago, adjusting ties, smoothing hair, running through talking points one last time. Mr. Jennings gestures toward me with the ease of someone used to making introductions that matter. I'd like you to meet our primary investor and partner for the Riverside Development Project. This is LK Enterprises. Desmond's eyes meet mine. Recognition hits like a physical blow. The color drains from his face, starts at his forehead, spreads down his cheeks, leaves him gray. His mouth opens. Nothing comes out. Brittany's hand shoots to the table edge, knuckles white, fingers digging into polished wood like she's afraid the floor might disappear beneath her feet. Hello, Desmond. My voice stays level, professional. Brittany. The silence stretches too long. Someone's phone buzzes on the table. Nobody moves to check it. Mr. Jennings glances between us. Confusion creeping into his expression, the kind that comes when the script suddenly changes and nobody told you. Hi, viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Brittany makes a sound. Small, choked, like air escaping from something that's been punctured. Her perfect lipstick can't hide how her lips tremble. Desmond's hand finds his tie, adjusts it twice, 3 times. A nervous habit he's had since high school when he needed to think, to process, to understand something that didn't make sense. Do you... Jennings starts, then stops. Tries again. Do you know each other? I could let it hang there, could watch them squirm a little longer, but I didn't build an empire by being cruel, just strategic. Yes. I settle into the chair at the head of the table, crossing my legs. Placing my hands on the armrest like I own them? Because I do. Desmond is my son. The words land like stones in still water. Ripples spread. Mr. Jennings's eyebrows shoot up. The junior executives exchange glances, the kind that say they'll be gossiping about this for weeks. One of them coughs. Another suddenly finds her tablet fascinating. Let me tell you how we got here. Because 24 hours earlier, I was just the construction worker mother who wasn't good enough for a family barbecue. And I'd been playing that role for 23 years. The paper coffee cup burned my fingertips yesterday morning. I stood outside the construction site watching cement mixers rumble past, their drums turning slow circles like the earth itself was being folded and refolded. Dust coated my work boots, steel-toed Red Wings. Same pair I'd worn for 3 years, broken in until they fit like old friends. The morning sun beat down on my hard hat, and somewhere behind me, a jackhammer stuttered to life, its rapid-fire percussion drilling into concrete. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with dirt-caked thumbs, saw Desmond's name on the screen. Don't come to the family barbecue. My wife prefers it to be family only. I read it once, twice, 3 times. Each word felt like a tiny blade. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to make you know you're bleeding. The cement mixer closest to me backed up, beeping that warning sound that means, watch out, something's moving, get out of the way. I typed back with thumbs that left smudges on the screen. Understood. 1 word. That's all it took to acknowledge that my only child had just uninvited me from a family gathering because his wife preferred it that way. Family only, like I wasn't family. Like 23 years of raising him alone didn't count for anything. My name is Lorraine Kapoor. I'm 58 years old. I've spent most of my life being underestimated, and I've learned that sometimes being invisible is the most powerful thing you can be. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and signed off on the morning delivery logs. The foreman, a guy named Rick who always smelled like cigarettes and had a tattoo of his daughter's name on his forearm, nodded at me. You good, Lorraine? Yeah, all good. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his eyes lingered a second too long, but he didn't push. That's the thing about construction sites. Everybody's got their own problems, nobody asks too many questions. I headed toward my truck, joints aching the way they do when you've spent decades doing physical labor. My knees complained going up the step. My shoulders protested when I grabbed the steering wheel. These are the marks that don't wash off, the price you pay for building things that last. The drive home took 40 minutes through traffic that crawled like it had nowhere important to be. I lived in a modest two-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood, vinyl siding that needed repainting, chain-link fence with a gate that squeaked, a driveway cracked in 17 places. I'd counted them once during a particularly lonely Sunday when I had nothing better to do than inventory my failures. Inside, I peeled off my work clothes, leaving them in a pile by the washing machine. The house felt too quiet. It always did. I walked to the bathroom and stood under a scalding shower until my skin turned pink, until the water pressure, weak, always weak, finally started to ease the tension in my muscles. My phone sat on the bathroom counter. Desmond's message still glowed on the screen when I picked it up. My wife prefers it to be family only. The words had teeth. They bit down and didn't let go. I wrapped myself in a towel and stared at my reflection. Silver hair cropped short because long hair on a construction site is dangerous. Laugh lines around my eyes that no longer came from laughing. Hands rough and calloused from years of handling tools, materials, things that don't care if they hurt you. Desmond was my only child. His father, Marcus Umanais, died when Desmond was 4, a factory accident that the company called unavoidable and I called negligence. The settlement barely covered the funeral costs. I'd raised Desmond alone after that, double shifts, missed school plays, showing up to parent-teacher conferences with grease under my fingernails and apologies on my lips. He'd gone to college, business degree, made something of himself, he liked to say, like I hadn't made anything of myself, like working construction was something to be ashamed of. He found a job at a downtown firm, started wearing suits that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, started talking about market trends and investment opportunities in a voice that didn't sound quite like his own anymore. Then came Brittany. She worked in marketing. Had perfect teeth, the kind that come from expensive orthodontics and regular dental visits. Drove a car with heated seats and one of those backup cameras that beeps when you get too close to things. At their wedding 3 years ago, she'd introduced me to her parents. This is Desmond's mother who works in construction. The emphasis on those last 3 words felt deliberate, like she was apologizing for my existence. Like she needed to explain why her new mother-in-law showed up in a dress from Target instead of Nordstrom, why my hands looked like they did, why I didn't fit the picture she'd painted for her family. I dried off and pulled on jeans and a faded t-shirt from a 5K race I'd never actually run. Someone gave it to me once, and free clothes are free clothes. The house felt suffocating. I wandered into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Leftover pasta in a plastic container. Wilted lettuce that should have been thrown out 2 days ago. A container of yogurt 2 days past its expiration date. The barbecue would have had burgers, probably. Potato salad, corn on the cob. Desmond's favorite chocolate cake. The one I used to make for his birthday before Brittany started ordering fancy cakes from that bakery downtown. Family only. I wasn't family anymore. The message was clear. My laptop sat on the kitchen table. I opened it and logged into my email, the one Desmond didn't know about, the one connected to a name he'd never heard. 73 unread messages waited for me, contract negotiations, board meeting minutes, quarterly reports showing profit margins that would make most people dizzy. I clicked through them mechanically, approved a bid for a commercial property development, denied a partnership proposal that didn't make financial sense, made notes on a zoning variance application that needed attention. My fingers moved across the keyboard with the kind of efficiency that comes from doing something hundreds of times, thousands of times, until it becomes muscle memory. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered what Brittany would think if she knew, what Desmond would say, what his face would look like when he realized the truth. But they wouldn't know. Not yet. The thing about being underestimated is that people stop watching you. They assume you're simple, predictable, harmless. They talk around you, make plans without you, exclude you from family barbecues. And while they're busy dismissing you, you can build empires in the shadows where nobody thinks to look. I'd started small. One rental property, bought with Marcus's life insurance payout, the one the lawyers didn't know about, the one his mother had taken out years before we got married and left to me in a will nobody thought to check thoroughly. A small house in a neighborhood that was rough but improving. I fixed it up myself on weekends, learned plumbing from YouTube videos, learned electrical work from a retired contractor who lived down the street and liked having someone to talk to, then another property, then another. Then a small apartment complex that needed work but had good bones. I'd learned to read contracts by reading them over and over until the language made sense. Learned to spot opportunities by watching what other investors were doing, where they were buying, what they were avoiding. Learned to negotiate with developers who took one look at me, working class woman, construction job, modest clothes, and assumed I was desperate for any deal they offered. They were wrong. The portfolio had grown, residential properties, commercial real estate, a partnership in a development firm that I discovered, quite by accident, subcontracted work to the company where Desmond worked. I'd built it all piece by piece, careful never to leave a trail that led back to Lorraine Kapoor, construction worker, single mother, woman in steel-toed boots. Instead, it led to LK Enterprises, a silent partner, an investor who preferred to remain anonymous. A name on paperwork that meant nothing to anyone except the lawyers and accountants who managed the details and were paid very well to keep their mouths shut. 23 years of playing small, 23 years of letting people underestimate me. And now my own son had sent me a text message that might as well have said, "You don't belong." I closed the laptop and stared out the window at Mrs. Chen's garden next door. She was 74, still planted tomatoes every spring in neat rows that produced more fruit than one person could eat. We'd wave at each other sometimes, exchange pleasantries about the weather, but never talked much beyond that. She probably thought I was just another blue-collar worker counting down the days until retirement, wondering if Social Security would be enough. My phone buzzed again. Brittany this time. "Hi, Lorraine. Just wanted to make sure there were no hard feelings about tomorrow. It's just that we're trying to keep things intimate, you know? Family is so important to us." The exclamation point felt like violence, like she was trying to soften the blow with punctuation and false enthusiasm. I set the phone down without responding and walked to my bedroom closet. Behind my work clothes and discount store purchases, I kept a garment bag. Inside was a suit I'd never worn around Desmond, charcoal gray, tailored to fit like it was made for me. Because it was. I'd paid a tailor downtown to measure every inch, to adjust every seam until it looked like something a CEO would wear to close a deal worth millions. I ran my fingers over the fabric and left it hanging there. Not yet, but soon. What Desmond didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the woman he'd just uninvited was about to change his life forever. Monday morning arrived with rain that turned the construction site into a mud pit. I showed up at 6 a.m., same as always, boots squelching through puddles that reflected gray sky back at us. The crew chief, different guy than Rick, someone named Miguel, who'd been here maybe 2 months, bought everyone coffee from the gas station down the street. Burnt and bitter, but hot. We stood under a tarp strung between two pieces of equipment and complained about the weather, about traffic, about the city inspectors who kept changing requirements just when we thought we had everything figured out. Normal, predictable, invisible. At noon, I took my lunch break in my truck, eating a sandwich I'd packed that morning. Tuna fish on wheat bread, an apple that had seen better days, a handful of pretzels in a plastic bag. My phone had 17 missed calls from the office. My real office, the one downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a receptionist named Kaylin who thought LK stood for Laura Kingston because that's what I'd told her. I called back. Kaylin answered on the first ring. "Ms. Kingston, thank God. Hanlad, we've got the Riverside project presentation at 2 and the investors are asking about the timeline. Push it to 3. I watched rain streak down the windshield, turning the world outside into a watercolor painting. "And tell them we're accelerating the schedule by 2 weeks. Will you be in for the meeting?" "I'll be there." I hung up and finished my sandwich, chewing slowly, thinking about what was coming. The junior executives at the site were loading equipment onto a flatbed truck, their voices carrying across the distance, but not quite reaching me with actual words. Just sounds. Just noise. The drive downtown took longer than expected. Traffic moved like it was wounded. I stopped at a gas station bathroom and changed clothes in a stall that smelled like chemical lemons and broken promises. The suit fit perfectly because I'd paid someone to make sure it did. I applied makeup with the precision of someone who rarely wore it but had learned how when necessary. foundation to even out the sun damage, mascara to make my eyes look sharper, lipstick in a shade called corporate red. When I walked out of that bathroom, I was someone else entirely. Someone who belonged in boardrooms, who made decisions that affected hundreds of people, who commanded respect just by walking into a room. The office building rose 47 stories into the sky. My office was on the 43rd floor. The elevator played soft jazz, some instrumental version of a song I couldn't quite place, and a young executive got on at the 22nd floor. He smiled at me. Not the dismissive smile people give to construction workers. The kind of smile people give to others they recognize as equals, as people who matter, as people worth knowing. I smiled back. Kaylin stood when I arrived, smoothing her skirt, checking her tablet. The conference room is ready. Mr. Jennings is already here with the Riverside team. They brought the full presentation materials. Mr. Jennings. I'd met him 3 years ago at a charity gala where tickets cost $5,000 and the champagne flowed like water. We'd talked briefly about market trends and investment opportunities. He'd given me his card, told me to call if I ever wanted to discuss potential partnerships. He had no idea we'd ever met, of course. That night, I'd been Laura Kingston. Today, I was still Laura Kingston. But to Desmond, I'd always been just Mom. The presentation went exactly as expected. The investors liked the numbers, liked the projections, liked the way I could talk about zoning laws and tax incentives without notes, without hesitation, like I'd been doing this my whole life. Because I had been. Just not in a way anyone could see. When it ended, Mr. Jennings shook my hand, his grip firm, professional. LK Enterprises has been an incredible partner on this project. I don't know how you do it. Careful planning, I told him, meeting his eyes. And patience. He laughed, the kind of laugh that suggested he thought I was being modest. We should have dinner sometime, talk about future projects. I've got a promising young team member who's been working on something I think you'd find interesting. I'd like that. He didn't know, couldn't know, that the promising young team member was my son. That tomorrow morning everything would change. I left before he could suggest a date, before the conversation could go anywhere that might complicate things. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up, like I was descending through layers of different lives, different versions of myself. By the time I reached the parking garage, I was already unbuttoning the suit jacket, already preparing to become Lorraine again. In my car, I changed back into my work clothes, wiping off the makeup with wet wipes from the glove compartment. The transformation took maybe 5 minutes. When I checked the rearview mirror, construction worker Lorraine looked back at me. Silver hair still damp from the rain, no makeup, hands that told the truth about the kind of work I did. The construction site was empty when I got back. Everyone had gone home early because of the rain, because the site was too muddy to work safely, because sometimes you just have to know when to quit for the day. I sat in my truck and watched water pool in the foundation trenches we'd dug last week, watched it turn the earth into something that looked like chocolate milk. Somewhere across town, Desmond and Brittany were probably getting ready for their intimate family barbecue. Intimate. Family only. The words still stung, but differently now. Not like rejection, more like fuel. My phone buzzed. Mom, I know you're probably upset about yesterday. Brittany didn't mean anything by it. We just wanted to keep things small. I read the message twice. The word mom felt like an apology he didn't actually mean, like saying it would make everything okay would erase the fact that he'd chosen his wife's preference over his own mother. It's fine, I typed back. Have a good time. And I meant it. I was fine. Better than fine, because Tuesday morning, everything would change. Tuesday morning, Desmond and Brittany would walk into Mr. Jennings's office for their big presentation. The one Desmond had been preparing for months. The one that could make his career, the one he'd mentioned in passing during our last phone call 3 weeks ago when he still remembered to call occasionally. And Mr. Jennings would introduce them to the primary investor for the project, the person whose approval they needed, the partner who held all the cards. He'd introduce them to LK Enterprises. He'd introduce them to me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, counting cracks in the plaster the way I used to count sheep as a child. 23 cracks, same as the number of years I'd been playing this role, same as the number of years since Marcus died and left me alone to figure out how to raise a son and build a future at the same time. At 3 a.m., I got up and made tea, sat at the kitchen table in the dark. The house creaked around me, old pipes, settling foundation, the sound of the building that's been standing so long it's learned how to talk. I opened my laptop again, checked the meeting agenda for Tuesday, and Desmond's name was on the attendee list, so was Brittany's. They were listed as Hartwell Development Associates, which sounded more impressive than it was. They were junior associates, good at their jobs probably, smart enough to put together a decent presentation, but still just starting out, still trying to prove themselves, still hungry for the approval of people who mattered, people like me. I closed the laptop and went back to bed. This time, sleep came, and in my dreams, I practiced my greeting. Professional, calm, the kind of voice that reveals nothing but implies everything. Hello, Desmond. Brittany. Tuesday morning, I didn't go to the construction site. I called in sick, first time in 3 years, and Rick told me to feel better, told me not to worry, told me they'd manage without me for one day, but he had no idea that I wasn't sick, that I was about to walk into the most important meeting of my son's life. I took my time getting ready, showered with the good soap I kept for special occasions, dried my hair until it fell just right, applied makeup the way the consultant had taught me 2 years ago when I realized I'd need to present as Laura Kingston more often. Foundation, concealer, mascara, lipstick. Each layer adding polish, adding distance from the woman who worked construction sites. The suit fit like armor. I buttoned each button slowly, deliberately, checked my reflection from every angle. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Lorraine Kapoor anymore. I saw someone powerful, someone who'd earned every inch of respect she commanded. The drive downtown felt different in daylight. The city looked cleaner, sharper, more purposeful. I parked in my reserved spot, the one with my company name on it, the one on the executive level, and took the elevator up. Kaylin greeted me with her usual efficiency. "They're already in the waiting area, Ms. Kingston." I glanced at the security monitor on her desk. There they were, Desmond in a navy suit adjusting his tie for the third time in 2 minutes. Brittany in a cream-colored dress, checking her phone, then checking her reflection in the glass wall, then checking her phone again. They looked nervous, young, unprepared for what was coming. I felt something then. Not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction, something in between. Something that tasted like regret mixed with vindication. "Give me 5 minutes," I told Kaylin, "then send them in." I walked to my office and stood at the windows, looking out at the city 43 stories below. Somewhere down there was my modest house with its 17 cracks in the driveway. Somewhere down there was the construction site where Rick and Miguel and the others were probably drinking gas station coffee and complaining about the weather. Somewhere down there was the life I'd built to hide the life I'd actually been living. Mr. Jennings arrived right on time. Shook my hand warmly. "Ready for this? The Hartwell team is sharp. I think you'll be impressed." I'm sure I will be. We walked to the conference room together. His hand hovered near my elbow, not quite touching, just there, in that way men do when they think they're being chivalrous. I let him think he was guiding me, even though I knew exactly where we were going. The conference room door was closed. Behind it, Desmond and Brittany waited. Behind it, my son had no idea that his mother controlled his future. Behind it, everything was about to change. I put my hand on the door handle, felt the cool metal against my palm, took one breath, then another, then I opened it. The conference room swallowed sound. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a painting. Buildings reaching toward clouds, streets threading between them like veins. The whole world spread out below us like we were gods looking down on our creation. The table was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the overhead lights back at us in bright circles. Leather chairs lined up like soldiers at attention. Everything in this room said money, power, decisions that mattered. Desmond and Brittany stood near the window, professional smiles already in place. Brittany's hand clutched a leather portfolio, probably full of charts and projections and carefully rehearsed talking points. Desmond's shoulders were back, chin up, projecting confidence the way they teach you in business school. Mr. Jennings walked in first. I followed, my heels clicking against the floor with each step. Click, 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 the sound of arrival, the sound of authority. "Good morning," Mr. Jennings said, his voice warm, welcoming. "Thank you both for coming in today. I'm excited about this presentation. But first, let me make an introduction." He gestured toward me. "I'd like you to meet our primary investor and partner for the Riverside Development Project. This is Ms. Kingston from LK Enterprises. The moment stretched. Desmond's eyes met mine. I watched recognition hit him like a wave, saw his pupils dilate, saw his face go from confident to confused to comprehending in the space of 3 heartbeats. The color drained from his cheeks, started at his forehead, and worked its way down until he looked like he'd been carved from marble. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. His throat worked, trying to form words, but his brain hadn't caught up yet. Brittany's hand shot to the table, gripping the edge so hard her knuckles went white. Her carefully applied lipstick couldn't hide the way her lips had started trembling. "Hello, Desmond." I kept my voice level, professional, the way you'd greet any business associate. "Brittany." Silence filled the room like water. Someone's phone buzzed on the table, a muted vibration that seemed impossibly loud. Nobody moved to check it. Nobody moved at all. We were all frozen in this moment. This perfect moment when everything shifts and nothing will ever be quite the same again. Brittany made a sound, small, choked, like someone had punched all the air out of her lungs and she was trying to remember how breathing worked. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the way her eyes had gone wide, the way her hand trembled against the table, the way her whole body had gone rigid with shock. Mr. Jennings glanced between us, his professional smile faltering. "Do you—" He stopped. Started again. "Do you know each other?" I could have drawn it out. Could have made them squirm a little longer, but I didn't build an empire by being cruel. Just strategic. Just patient. Just willing to wait 23 years for the exact right moment. Yes. I walked to the head of the table, pulled out the chair, my chair, the one that belonged to whoever held the most power in the room, and sat down, crossed my legs, placed my hands on the armrest like they were a throne. "Desmond is my son." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Ripples spread outward. Mr. Jennings's eyebrows shot up so fast I thought they might reach his hairline. The junior associates who'd been setting up the presentation equipment suddenly found other things to look at. The ceiling, the floor, their tablets, anywhere but at us. One of them coughed. Another shifted her weight from foot to foot like she was thinking about running. Desmond's hand found his tie, adjusted it once, twice, 3 times. That nervous habit from high school when he had to process something that didn't fit his understanding of the world. When he found out Santa wasn't real. When his father died. When life threw curveballs that his carefully organized brain couldn't quite catch. He tried, failed. Tried again. "I don't understand." "LK Enterprises." I kept my voice calm, even, like I was explaining something simple to someone who should have figured it out already. "Lorraine Kapoor, it's not complicated, Desmond." Brittany's face had gone through several colors in the past 30 seconds. White, then red, then a kind of greenish pale that suggested she might be sick. Her grip on the portfolio had loosened. The leather folder slipped from her fingers and hit the table with a soft thud that echoed in the quiet. Mr. Jennings cleared his throat. "I wasn't aware you had family in the development business." "You weren't meant to be." I shifted my gaze to him away from Desmond's stricken face. "I prefer to keep my personal and professional lives separate, but apparently the universe has other plans." The universe? Like this was coincidence. Like I hadn't known for 6 months that Desmond was working on the Riverside project. Like I hadn't read every proposal, every email, every document with his name on it. Like I hadn't made sure this exact scenario would happen at this exact time. Desmond found his voice. It came out rough, uncertain. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long have you been—" He gestured around the room, at the office, at everything. "This. 23 years." I let that sink in. Let him do the math. Let him realize that I'd been building this empire since he was in elementary school, since I was supposedly just a construction worker barely making ends meet, since he started believing that success looked like suits in downtown offices instead of steel-toed boots in early mornings. 23. He couldn't finish the sentence. His brain was still trying to reorganize everything he thought he knew about his mother, about his life, about the woman who'd raised him in a modest house with vinyl siding and a cracked driveway. Brittany's voice came out as a whisper. The barbecue. Everyone looked at her. She'd gone pale again, all the color draining from her face as understanding crashed over her like a wave. The family barbecue. We told you, I told you, that it was family only. I finished for her. Gentle, not cruel, just factual. Yes, you did. The room was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system humming, could hear someone breathing too fast in the corner, could hear the city noise filtering up from 43 stories below, distant sirens, car horns, the white noise of thousands of lives being lived while ours imploded in this conference room. Mr. Jennings' professional instincts kicked in. He clapped his hands together once, the sound sharp in the silence. Well, this is unexpected, but we're all professionals here. Perhaps we should proceed with the presentation? If everyone is comfortable? He looked at me. I nodded, looked at Desmond and Brittany. They looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Desmond's jaw tightened. Brittany straightened her spine. They were both trying to pull themselves together, trying to remember why they were here, trying to separate the professional from the personal, even though those lines had just been erased with permanent marker. Yes, Desmond said finally, but let's proceed. They did. They gave their presentation. Desmond's voice shook at first, then steadied as he fell into the rhythm of facts and figures and market analysis. Brittany pulled up slides, pointed to charts, explained projections in that confident marketing voice she'd probably practiced in front of a mirror. They were good. I had to give them that. The proposal was solid, well-researched, thoughtful. I watched them work, watched my son present like his career depended on it, which it did, and felt something complicated twist in my chest. Pride, maybe, or regret, or some mixture of both that didn't have a name. When they finished, I asked questions. Fair questions. Professional questions. The kind of questions any serious investor would ask. I didn't go easy on them, but I didn't sabotage them either. That wasn't why I was here. That wasn't what this was about. The timeline seems aggressive, I said, tapping my pen against my notepad. What's your contingency plan if permits take longer than expected? Desmond answered. His voice had steadied now, had found its professional footing, even though his eyes kept darting to me like he was still trying to reconcile the woman, asking questions with the woman who'd made him tuna sandwiches for school lunch. We've built in a buffer period, 6 weeks. If we need more time, we can adjust the second phase without impacting the primary construction schedule. And the budget? Conservative estimates with a 10% overage allowance. Subcontractors? All vetted, all local, all with proven track records on similar projects. I nodded, made notes, asked more questions. Brittany fielded some. Desmond handled others. They worked well together, I noticed, complemented each other's strengths. When Desmond got too technical, Brittany translated. When Brittany got too focused on marketing, Desmond brought it back to numbers. 45 minutes later, it was done. The presentation ended. Mr. Jennings thanked them, told them he'd be in touch, used all the standard phrases that meant nothing and everything at the same time. Desmond and Brittany gathered their materials. Brittany's hands shook slightly as she closed her laptop. Desmond kept his eyes down, focused on papers that didn't need organizing, avoiding looking at me directly. Actually, I said, just as they were about to leave, Desmond, Brittany, could I have a moment, privately? Mr. Jennings took the hint, so did the junior associates. They filed out, leaving the three of us alone in the conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its view of the entire city. The door clicked shut. Desmond turned to face me. His expression was complicated, hurt and anger and confusion all fighting for space on his face. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked on the last word. All these years. Why didn't you just tell me? I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city below. When would have been the right time, Desmond? When you were in college, learning that success meant leaving behind where you came from, when you started wearing suits that cost more than my mortgage payment, when you introduced me to Brittany's parents as the mother who works in construction like you were apologizing for my existence. I never, he started. You did. I turned to face him. Not with words, maybe, but with every assumption you made. Every time you didn't ask questions about my life. Every time you saw the work boots and stopped looking. Brittany's voice was small. The barbecue was the final straw. I nodded. But not the reason. The reason goes back 3 years. To your wedding, Brittany, to the way you introduced me. To every dinner where you talked about my job like it was something that needed explaining or apologizing for. I didn't mean, I know you didn't mean it. That's what makes it worse. The casual dismissal, the automatic assumption that because I worked construction, I couldn't possibly understand your world, your life, your sophisticated conversations about market trends and investment portfolios. Silence fell again. Different this time. Heavier. Desmond sank into one of the conference room chairs, put his head in his hands. I don't know what to say. You could start with the truth. Did you really think I raised you on a construction worker's salary? Did you really never wonder how I paid for your college? How I always had enough money for what you needed even when it should have been impossible? He looked up. I don't know what I thought. I didn't think about it. Exactly. I sat down across from him. You didn't think about it because it was easier not to. Easier to believe your mother was just a simple woman with a simple job living a simple life. Easier than asking questions that might complicate your nice, neat understanding of the world. Brittany sat down too. She'd been standing by the door like she was thinking about running, but now she seemed to realize that running wouldn't solve anything. What happens now? Now, I leaned back in my chair. Now I make a decision about your proposal, and before you ask, yes, I will be fair. Yes, I will evaluate it on its merits, but you should know something. They both looked at me, waiting. The proposal is good. Really good. You've done excellent work. And LK Mimes Enterprises will be moving forward with this partnership. Desmond's breath came out in a rush, relief, then confusion. You're approving it? I told you, I'm fair. You earned this, Desmond. Both of you. I'm not going to punish you professionally for personal mistakes. That's not who I am. That's not how I built this. I stood up, smoothed my suit jacket, prepared to leave. But Desmond's voice stopped me. Mom. I turned. He was standing now too, and he looked younger somehow, like he'd gone back in time to being the little boy who needed his mother to explain how the world worked. I'm sorry for all of it, for not seeing you, for not asking, for the barbecue, for everything. Brittany stood up too. I'm sorry too, you're right. About the wedding, about everything. I made assumptions and that was wrong, and I'm so sorry. I looked at them both, my son and his wife, both young, both smart, both still learning that life is more complicated than it seems on the surface. Apologies are a start, I said. But they're just words. What matters is what comes next. What do you want to come next? Desmond asked. Sunday dinners. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. But once I said them, I knew they were right. At my house, both of you, every Sunday. And Brittany? You can bring your parents. I think it's time they met the real me. Brittany nodded, tears streaming down her face now, ruining her careful makeup. Okay, yes, whatever you want. What I want, I said, walking toward the door, is for my son to actually know his mother. All of me. Not just the parts that fit comfortably into his understanding of the world. I opened the door, paused, looked back at them one more time. The meeting's over. The contract will be drawn up by the end of the week. Congratulations on your partnership with LK Enterprises. I'll see you both on Sunday, 5 o'clock. Don't be late. Then I walked out, leaving them standing in that conference room, leaving them to process everything that had just happened, leaving them to figure out how to rebuild a relationship that should have been solid all along but had been built on assumptions and half-truths instead. 6 months later, the Riverside project was ahead of schedule. Desmond and Brittany had proven themselves even more capable than their initial presentation suggested. They worked hard, asked smart questions, made good decisions, and every Sunday they showed up at my house. 5 o'clock. Never late. Brittany brought her parents on the third Sunday. I answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt. No suit, no makeup, just me. Her mother's face had been priceless when Brittany explained who I actually was. Her father had asked intelligent questions about real estate development over dinner, treating me like an equal instead of someone to be polite to. We ate at the dining room table I'd bought from a thrift store 20 years ago. The food wasn't fancy. Pot roast and potatoes, green beans from Mrs. Chen's garden because she always grew too many and liked to share. But it was real. And we talked like real people, not like actors playing parts we thought we were supposed to play. Desmond asked about my first property deal. I told him about the rental house, about learning plumbing from YouTube, about the tenant who paid rent in cash and homemade tamales for 6 months. Brittany asked about the construction job. I explained how I'd needed it to maintain the illusion, how being invisible had been the greatest gift I could have given myself. But you're not invisible, Desmond said. Not anymore. No, I agreed, not anymore. Sunday dinners became a ritual, became something we all looked forward to, became the thing that should have been there all along. Family, real family, the kind that sees each other fully and loves each other anyway. And sometimes, when I drove to the construction site on Monday mornings, I'd catch myself smiling. Because I still worked there, still wore the steel-toed boots, still signed off on delivery logs and drank gas station coffee with Rick and Miguel. Because that was part of who I was too. Not the whole story, not the only story, but part of it. I was Lorraine Kapoor, construction worker, and I was Laura Kingston, real estate mogul, and I was mom, trying to repair a relationship with my son, and I was all of it at once. All of these pieces that had been separated for so long, finally coming together into something whole. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been dismissed or underestimated or told you didn't belong, remember this. The people who can't see you aren't blind. They just aren't looking. And sometimes that's exactly the advantage you need. To anyone building something in the shadows right now, anyone working toward a goal that nobody believes in, anyone wearing boots while dreaming of boardrooms, keep going. Your time will come, and when it does, make sure you're wearing exactly what you want to wear. Make sure you're exactly who you want to be. What hit you hardest from this story? And if you were in my position, what would you have done when your son sent that text message? Would you have revealed the truth the same way? Or would you have handled it differently? There's more waiting for you. Click the next video on your screen right now and watch another powerful story from our channel. These stories matter. These lessons matter. And I want to keep sharing them with you. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss a story, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me about a time someone underestimated you. Tell me what you built when they weren't looking. I'll see you in the next one.